And we're live. Phil Tarrant, Tom Panos, Real Estate Exposed. The kings of jibber jabber in real estate. That's your term, Tom. You love it, don't you? Is that a Greek term?
Nah, John McGrath came up with it because we started doing Million Dollar Agent podcast, and we never did any preparation. A bit like this, always on the run, making it up as you went. And he said to me, he goes, "Who would have thought that people actually tune into this jibber jabber?" And that's where I got it. But it actually pretty much reflects what we do. That was a great session we did on Saturday night. The running commentary of the election. I went into that
Yeah.
election. Phil, I was listen. We did three Zooms. On those three Zooms, the first one we're absolutely adamant. I thought absolutely adamant, man, that Liberal was going to win based on the score underneath. But it was a clean slate. It was a bit of a whitewash, actually. Hi to everyone that's coming on. Rhodey, good to see you. Annie, good to see you. But Phil, can I ask you now? Were you surprised at the result?
Well, if you think back to Saturday night, Tom, you said as hard as you've tried to get it out of me for probably commentary for 3-4 months running up to the election, I never ever once disclosed the way I think it would land, and I'm not going to start that now, Tom. I think what Australia needs to do is embrace a new government, embrace a new leadership, work out how we can collectively go through these challenges that face us economically moving forward. It's to be fair though, looking at the results of it, Tom, and we should really go a little bit in depth into it today. We've only got like 20 odd minutes or so, but I think the catch-all for me was the coalition didn't necessarily lose the election based on the fact that more people wanted to vote Labor. It's just that more people didn't actually want to vote for them. And we've seen this teal wave. We spoke about it on a Saturday night, Tom. A lot of those traditional Liberal voting areas have voted independent because I think they feel that they represent local communities more effectively. They probably represent a greater voice of the female voters in Australia, and I would imagine down in Canberra and political meeting rooms around Australia for the coalition, they're doing some deep soul searching because the big question now is that will the Liberal Party, will the coalition swing even further to the right, which is probably even a little bit more polarising and disconnecting with the centrist nature of Australian politics. So I don't know. I'm going to chat to some people and try and get a sense for what's happening right now. I'm too early for me to make an informed opinion on it all. But Tom, let's just get on with the business of the Labor Party in government. Their policies that they took in the election around real estate, I think largely positive for real estate in Australia. For property investors, they weren't going to cut negative gearing. They weren't going to cut the discounts around CGT. So business as usual. The big headline for me, Tom, from the election, it did turn into a real estate oriented election when we thought earlier on it wouldn't, but real estate was one of the key policy agendas to connect with Australians for both parties. The Australian government is highly invested in positive outcomes for real estate in Australia, and that's not a bad thing for anyone.
Yeah. So, the good news is, Phil, that since that day, I do my own little, anecdotal research and development. And one interesting thing that's come up when I talk to real estate operators that have been around for decades, not years, is, Phil, they are under the impression when Labor is in government, there's more stock on the market. More stock on the market. Whatever that reason is, doesn't necessarily mean it sells over reserve as much, doesn't necessarily mean that days on market are short, but there's a feeling there when I talk to people that have owned businesses for 30, 40 years, they're sort of saying, hey, listen, you know what? There's probably the confidence is not as high, but things transact. Things transact. Deals are being done. Days on market might increase. I've got a wonderful cafe owner here, and he's been very kind. His name's Paul Signorelli from the Bay Run Rod Point Cafe.
No, mate. No, there's no free plugs on Real Estate Exposed, Tom. We're unless there's a sponsor out there that wants to sponsor us. We need some sponsorship, Tom. I thought you're an important man in real estate. Where's our sponsors?
Good point. So any of the big banks there that are listening, any of the big technology companies, get behind this great Real Estate Exposed. And we talk about things that other people don't want to talk about. And Phil, let me just say, the comment of the week came from a business owner that said to me, I don't like Anthony Albanese, but I've got to tell you one thing. Anthony Albanese has nothing to do with my prospecting, has nothing to do with my time management, has nothing to do with my listing presentation, has nothing to do with my daily plan, has nothing to do with how we actually approach our social media and digital strategy. In fact, Anthony Albanese has very little to do with our whole real estate model. And I think that was the quote of the week, because it's basically saying, hey, generally speaking, in business, it's a level playing field. So you can take that. Hey,
I think you're cut out, Tom. I can't hear you, mate. Tom's looks like he's got some recording issues here. Are you back?
Try that.
Yep.
Okay, I'm really sorry. So what we're saying, Phil, is that fundamentally, your life will have very little to do with a government in place and a lot to do with your skill set, your capabilities, the technology that you're embracing or rejecting. And that's a good news story. And it's also good that we're not going to have a government, and you might want to confirm this, Phil, because you're across it a lot more. We've got a clear majority Labor government, which means some of the concerns that we had that we were going to get caught up with getting decisions across the line most likely won't be the case. Is that right?
Yeah, I believe so. And even the Liberal government is saying Australia's better off for having a government in majority rather than minority. And we spoke about this on Saturday night, Tom. You know, the balance of power for decision making is held by the independents. You know, that just slows down the process of government. And it's not the outcome that what anyone wants, Tom. But look, I think those quotes that you made, commenting on one of those business owners, makes a lot of sense. There's got to be a lot of people who are going to be using a changing government as an excuse why everything isn't going their way. Now, I think one of the things that we all learned through COVID-19 is a whole bunch of stuff that we have no control over. It's how we react and respond to it dictates and determines your skills as a business professional. And this is going to be exactly the environment. Let's be fair. Like, you know, the Labor government is highly invested in the ongoing growth and prosperity of Australia. It's clear. You know, they're not going to put any brakes on anything because they feel like doing it. They've just got a different way of doing business, slightly different approach to how they see the world. But they're inherently connected in with the growth of Australia. So let's let them get on with government. Let's let them get on with running this nation and the challenges that we have in front of us. And Tom, I think maybe we can draw a line under election coverage now. We'd still like to get, and maybe we can do. Some of the key stakeholders on for a chat with us from the Labor government. We'd love to hear from them. We'd love to understand where they're going. I know on the mortgage broker front, the new government is very supportive of the broker channel. They're looking at ways in which to change clawback provisions. They're supportive of the agenda to promote growth in mortgage broking in Australia, no doubt. And you see in the policies, they'll do the same in real estate. So it'd be a lot better to get greater sense of that, Tom. But onto a much more interesting topic, and this is something I was thinking about when I was driving into work today, Tom. This evening, I'm going to a function, well, two functions. The first function is some beers and some drinks with some fighter pilots, current and ex-fighter pilots, for a pre-function to a private screening of Top Gun Maverick. I'm going to that tonight, Tom, and I was thinking on the way in, I sort of went, real estate agents and fighter pilots have a lot in common.
You said that last week about politicians and real estate agents. Tell us the similarity between fighter pilots and real estate agents. Well,
no, the question is, I've got my thoughts, but think about that for a moment. Look at fighter pilots. They're apex. They're the top of their game. They are the cream of aviation professionals and I'm talking about military fighter pilots, the cream of aviation professionals, they typically have, and if there's any fighter pilots listening to this, I'm sorry, but you know this, they've got big egos, they've got big attitudes, they think they are the best, and they need to think that way in order to be the best. They work in a very contested and conflicted environment. It's very competitive. They train, they drill, they prepare every single day for being and being a fighter pilot. You know, they when there's a fighter pilot in the room. You know, all these things, and I went, oh, there's a lot of similarities is there, Tom, with real estate agents. You know.
Okay, I'd love to be in that. Is it? You're going to a function with how many of them are there?
Oh, there'll be quite a few. And then we all go and watch the new. It's a charity thing with Wandering Warriors and a company called Afterburner, which is run by an ex-fighter pilot. It's a speaking coaching business. You might know him, Christian Bakusis. Yeah, there'll be a few of them there. You know, they're very bright people as well, like very erudite. But I think you need to be wired a particular way to be operating at that peak performance all the time. And I think that's what the similarity is. It's the perpetually operating at peak performance.
So Phil, picture this. You know, a big night out, big dinner table. Firstly, there's drinks, then a big dinner. Real estate agents, the best of the best on one side of the table, the fighter pilots on the other side. I can picture that. Few egos there. Real estate agents. Well, the good thing is, I would assume the best real estate agent makes a lot more money than the best fighter pilot.
Yeah,
would that be
the
right?
best real estate agent makes a lot more money than the Prime Minister of Australia. Tom Albo's on about 530 grand is his salary. He'd be getting benefits and all that sort of stuff. I reckon you know, midweight fighter pilot with this Royal Australian Air Force, mate, I'll be plucking numbers out, but 150. But they got a pretty cool job flying a $90 million fighter jet.
I'm not going to mention, 100%. I'm not going to mention the guy's name, but I just got off. I was doing a coaching session with a guy in Perth. Been in real estate 7-8 years. His group certificate shows $1 million. Sells homes $600,000-$700,000. I just said to him, I said, $1 million. I said, think about that for a moment. He goes, I know. He goes, I take it for granted, but he goes, make more than our premier here. What's a premier make, Phil? The premier in WA?
He'd be McGowan. He'd probably be on 400 and something, I would imagine.
This is, Phil, this is a serious business. I mean, we're not saving people's lives, but if you turn around and realize the things that are at stake, a high personal income if you're at high performance, if you're pro and you're operating at black belt. And listen, whilst you're not going to save someone's life, a good real estate agent, Phil, can change the trajectory of a family's life by getting them $150,000 more. $150,000 for the average family in Australia getting extra on their property can change the trajectory of their life. They can end up having more options for their family. They might end up buying an investment property in a holiday regional area. They might be able to afford to actually send their kids to a private schools. It changes the trajectory of people's lives. And, you know, like for me right now in this transitioning market that we've got, Phil, I would just urge every person that's a professional to actually turn around and actually say, hey, maybe this is an opportunity for me to actually get serious about my life. I mean, I'm not playing for Barcelona. I'm not about to get signed up by Netflix. I'm not on $30,000 a day as a barrister. I might as well actually just become the absolute pro and be earning income at the $1 million, $2 million type levels. And the guy I was talking about is doing it in Perth, selling $600,000 homes. Only makes you think, what could you be doing selling in Toorak? What could you be doing, you know, selling in the prestige areas significantly more? And it's the same with mortgage brokers. I mean, I know a mortgage broker shared with me what his trail is and what his income is. These are serious heavy hitters here, Phil. I mean, we're not talking about milk bar operations where, you know, they're writing, you know, a few $1 million, you know, at settlement and making $100 a year. These guys here making $2 million a year, Phil.
Yeah, mate, put that in perspective. It's a lot of money, right? You're getting paid a significant amount of money doing that. The Chief of the Defence Force, Tom, Chief of the Defence Force, General Angus Campbell, he takes home $1 million to be the Chief of the Defence Force. Think about that for a second. Versus a real estate agent making $1 million selling houses in Western Australia, which is also a very good profession. The top public servants. I think the top public servant, Tom, who is I think the governor of the Reserve Bank only makes about $1 million. I think the top public servant in Australia makes about $4 million. I'm trying to remember who it is. I think the head of Australia Post makes a couple of $1 million. The top public servant is I can't remember where it is. About $4 million, right? So if you're making $1 million in real estate, Tom, you're doing very well professionally. And there is a lot of agents. Let's be clear. A lot of agents also they do make $1 million. It's just not like a handful. There's $1 million agents. There's a good reason why it's called that. You got me thinking, just Tom. You made a point saying, imagine what he would earn if he was selling in Toorak, which is in Victoria. And I just went, is that actually possible? You saw in the federal election, bringing it back to it very quickly, they tried to parachute Christine Keneally into, I believe, Fowler was the electorate out in Western Suburb, notoriously safe Labor seat, largely guaranteed she was going to be elected just because they always vote Labor. They didn't vote for her. They voted for the independent. Because they went, no, who is this? Who is this person? Why is she here? She's from the Northern Beaches. Go back to Scotland Island. You're not one of us. Does the same apply for real estate agents? If hypothetically you're going to parachute that same agent into Toorak, is he going to earn $2 million, $3 million just because he's good at real estate?
That's a really good question, and I need to give that considerable thought.
Keep it as homework for next week, Tom.
Yeah, I'm going to keep that. The first thing that came to my mind is picking up Josh Tesselin from Quakers Hill and throwing him into Double Bay. And what would he do there? And I'm going to give it more thought. I think there could be horses for courses, but I'm tending to believe that if you picked up Josh Tesselin and you put him there, he'd probably do it. And the reason I say it is Michael Pallier, who is probably one of the great real estate agents in the last 40 years, Sotheby's in Double Bay. He was a motor mechanic that used to take the train in from Wollongong. Wasn't brought up in the eastern suburbs, wasn't a trust fund kid, no private schools. But the only thing I will say is that once a real estate agent in those prestige markets has got market share, you do become a brand, and it's easier to become a brand in this wealthy pocket. Example, Marcus Chiminello said to me he's got 3,000 people on his database, but only 6 matter. This is a guy in Melbourne, prestige market, sells all. And I said to him, why is that? He goes, because 6 people between the lawyer, the accountant, the advisor, they influence the decisions of other high net worth clients. So I'm constantly having a client ring me up saying, hey, such and such thinks that I should give you a talk for you to come in and look at my property. You probably get less of that in Quakers Hill.
Yeah.
You probably get less of that. Now, Phil, I want to think about that further. Now, I'm sitting at a park. I've got this bee, as you can see, and I've got this phobia of bees. Now, I don't know why this bee it's going for me, and I want to step on it, but it would be a lot easier if we actually can terminate and finish off and wish everyone the best. I'm heading off to ARIC this weekend, and I'm looking forward to. I've just been given the questions that they want me to interview Matthew McConaughey on Sunday, so that's something I'm looking forward to. That's Sunday, Monday. It genuinely did sell out. This event has sold out. There is about 450 people that have signed up on a wait list.
Wow, it's crazy. Make sure you ask Matthew why he likes the Central Coast of New South Wales so much.
Does he?
Well, he lived there as he did a gap year or something or other, or some sort of school exchange He was up on the Central Coast somewhere, someone like Gorican or can't remember where, Tukely or something or other.
I gotta read up and watch up on him, right? That's a good question, because at the moment I've been really the only thing I'm consuming online that's outside of my life is watching the final 2 to 3 days of the Johnny Depp case before it closes for the jury to make up their mind. And Phil, I've got to tell you, we spoke about it offline. If you ever want to see, this is the true Academy Award performance of all time. What this guy has done is, through a courtroom that is live streamed each day, he has been able to keep people entertained and influenced. And, at first I thought to myself, this guy's just a good guy. Then I realized this guy here understands. He is performing to millions and millions of people. Small gestures, Phil. You'll see him pulling a chair. You'll see him having this laughter with the court reporter. There's a court reporter there that no one ever speaks to. Every day, Phil, he actually cooks breakfasts and provides breakfasts for the hundreds of people that are supporting him outside as the car in. This morning he gets his team to make waffles. This is a man that purely knows that if you're in business, you're in show business. And it's a big learning to every person out there that is involved in the business of influence, that everything you do, the way you dress, what you say, what you hand out, is affecting your brand. There is no such thing as doing something that does not affect brand equity.
I like it. Well concluded, Tom. We'll be back next week, same time. Real Estate Exposed. Phil Tarrant, Tom Panos, signing off.
Everyone's behind Anthony Albanese. We stick as one now. That's the right thing to do. Signing off.